big building. I don't know what's up with this place, man. They just obviously were building it and then they just weren't building it. There's no better explanation than that. Because on the other side, we've got shiny buildings everywhere. So I don't know what happened with this guy. So yeah, I'm just gonna choose where I want to sit today, because I kind of want to try some diving stuff. And yeah, you're thinking, why don't you dive that one, dude? Right down the front. Well, basically, I'm too chicken to do that, because like at the bottom of that dive thing, there's not such a big gap to get out of it, and there is some stuff that goes across that gap on the way up too. So I'll show you. I mean, I'm not making excuses or anything, but that's the gap right there. Yeah, technically it might be diveable, but there's some little bars across it, and I don't know what. It's a bit sketchy for me, man. Maybe when some pilot with like real skills comes out here, like Mr. Steele or something, maybe he can dive that for me. Why do I want to dive up? Well, because first of all, I just want to dive up, but I am also testing out my new Badger frames, and I'm gonna cut to the review of my Badger frames in a second. Actually, let me redo that for the camera. Ooh, beautiful. I love it. This Bando is a quad killer, potentially. Unless, take it easy. Kind of just wanted to dive some stuff today, though. Might be possible. I don't know. So yeah, I just wanted to dive some stuff for the fun of it, because it's kind of fun, and because I just switched from roosters to badgers. So I'm gonna cut over to that. Oh man, do I really want to fly this? It's looking kind of hairy, but the thing is, the light here is kind of crap too, dude. I don't know. Oh, and it's all watery. Eee. We're gonna still fly it. So yeah, I basically I'll do a little quick review of the Badger frames and the differences between the Badger and the Rooster. But the long story short is that because I am flying Badgers now, my cam tilt situation is a little different, and so I want to see how that plays into like building diving and stuff like that. Oh, that's gross. God, what the hell are feathers doing there? Oh man. All right, we want to be real careful today, I think. I mean, I'm always careful, but oh God. Yeah, we're good. Da, 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 da. This guy's still here. Awesome. Oh, it's a bit shifty. You just really got to watch your footing in Bando spots. They are not very forgiving. Yeah, I think this is about where I like to sit. It's a bit of a crapshoot, but you know what to do. All right. So yeah, anyways, let's cut over to the quick review of the Badger frame. Full disclosure, I am sponsored by Armattan. So when I'm reviewing a frame, keep that in mind. Having said that, no one made me buy the Badgers. They're free, but no one's even suggested I get the Badgers. Actually, no one suggested anything. They just said sort of, hey, welcome aboard. That's it. Anything you want, whatever. So it's not like anyone's trying to push products on you or anything like that. And to be honest, my first instinct was, yay, I'm sponsored, I get free frames, let's go for the Badger, it's the latest, greatest, all that. And I held off forever and ever and ever and ever. And then finally I ordered the frames. And the frames came in, but the thing is, I was still flying my roosters, and the roosters were flying so good that I didn't really see much of a reason to like change it up, because I had two quads that were just performing and doing everything right, reliable, flying awesome. I was having a ton of fun with them. So the whole plan to build up the Badgers kind of fell by the wayside. I kind of didn't know what to do with them or whatever. Then eventually I got the idea that, okay, maybe I'll keep my roosters and I'll, build the Badgers as a brand new build with like KISS V2 stuff on it and new motors and new everything, fresh build. Because I haven't done a fresh build in like forever. Then that went by the wayside because I crashed a few times too many with the roosters, and I had to start digging into my motor supply that I had allocated to the new Badger builds. So I ended up with not enough parts to build the Badgers. Then the Badgers stayed around for another month or two until recently. So finally I decided to do the swap, and what I did is I took my rooster guts out and I dropped them into the Badgers, which is not necessarily the best way to do not necessarily the best way to build a new quad, but that's what I did. And I have been flying them for a little while now too, so I know how they work. Basically, yeah, end of the story, they did fly well, they did work. I was a bit worried about that because, when you transplant stuff into a new frame, all sorts of stuff can go wrong, and I can't even retune my KISS flight controllers because the USB ports on them are actually broken, so I can't plug them in. So there was no chance of retuning. I dropped in the guts and it was like, better work, and it worked. So I've been flying them for a little while now, and I am in a position where I think I know them good enough to give a little quick review on why I swapped and some of the cool features on it that I've noticed as I've been using it or whatever. We got Badger 1, Badger 2, just like we had Rooster 1 and Rooster 2 previously. Now, the main reason that I swapped to this guy is because of that cage. So the Badger and the Marmot have this new cage design that basically is adjustable. So it's got 3 bolts down here, loosen them up, and you can change the angle of the whole assembly. So your HD cam and your FPV cam at the same time, you can just swap that angle just by loosening and tightening a few bolts a little bit. That was the main reason actually that I swapped over, because I have been flying lower tilt in the Rooster for quite a while, around 20, and I actually had maxed out how low I could go with the Rooster. So that's basically why I changed to this guy, is because I wanted to go a little bit lower and check that out and see what's up. So that's the main reason I swapped over. Everything guts wise is all old Rooster stuff, so it's the Steele V2 motors. I still using the race wire, still using the Hobby Wing 40 amp Beal Heli 32 ASC with a KISS V1. The KISS V1s have a broken USB port. I'm using the Unify, like the latest Unify, I forget what it's called, Unify Pro 32 HV I believe it is, and of course Crossfire, as you can tell by the antennas. So the build is pretty straightforward. The only thing I had to change was the FPV cam. Not because the full-size cam wouldn't fit. So I like my CCD cams a lot, and I actually got my Runcam Rotor Riot to fit in this frame, but I wanted a little more adjustability on the angle and stuff like that, and a little bit more safety for the camera. So I swapped to this this guy here, which is the Runcam Swift Johnny FPV edition, and then I just put the Rotor Riot lenses on it, and it worked cool. So that I get more adjustability, but also if you look here, this camera is like way inside the frame to the point where I actually almost see the little ends of the frame here in my lens sometimes. But I did that for safety because I'm just tired of smashing cameras.
So, you know, there's no cure, but that's gonna probably help my chances a bit. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the build. So, features. Obviously, the cage is really cool. Not many cages are going to let you change the angle of your stuff, just like with a few bolts, and be able to swap everything at the same time. So if you've got a nice setup where you're happy with your FPV cam angle and your HD and your footage looks great, and you just want to go and, like, you know, say you want to chase some drift cars or something like that, or just chase a boat, or I don't know what. If you want to go faster, you can raise the tilt on the whole thing, and it's not going to mess up anything to do with this stuff. You don't need any extra TPU mounts. You don't need to fiddle with anything, and nothing like that. Super convenient. The other thing you can do, though, is you can change the angle of your FPV camera relative to your HD camera. So you could hypothetically, you know, tilt this sucker up so it's pointing at the sky or whatever, and you could point your FPV camera down so it's like going straight. I am not even running full low angle. I have a little bit of adjustability left, so I can actually get down to probably about 0 tilt on this, I think, if I want, the way it's set up. But I kind of like how it's flying now. I just like having that adjustability because I want to play with camera angle. Why? Because it influences how my flying works and stuff like that, and it's an ongoing experiment, but it's just something that I find I enjoy doing. I like the way it's feeling, and so I got this frame so I could do that. However, there's some other cool things that are good about the frame. So one cool thing, without even looking or opening it up, is like it's got this ginormous battery pad on it. So like that battery pad will take, I don't know what size of lipo, but this is a 1500 4S. A 6S is the same length but bigger, but like that backplate is so big that I can reposition this however I want to balance the quad out, which is great because, say, if I went from my sessions to a different camera on the front, I can rebalance the quad, no problem. Don't have to change anything. Or if you want to do a long-range build or something with an 1800 or maybe a 2200 or something, you've got room up here where you can do that, no problems. And that is super cool because not a lot of frames have that flexibility, especially when you buy a conventional frame and you stick a GoPro mount on the front. You'll often find that partly due to the space the GoPro thing takes up and the angle of the GoPro, it's going to really cut into your battery space. You end up like sort of shoving your battery into the back of the quad, or guys go toilet tank or all this stuff. And you don't have to do that with this thing because it's just got all the room in the world for days, which is really cool. The other big thing that they changed is the arm design compared to the roosters. So they've gone to this butted up design. So these guys are butted up really close to each other. Like I can't get a fingernail or anything in there. Nice and tight. The arms no longer flex. It's nice and rigid. And to remove arms, because let's be honest, you're going to break stuff, and I have kind of set this up so that it'll be the arms that break. When that happens, it's only going to be one bolt here, one bolt here. Arm comes off, drop a new arm on it, done. I don't even have to worry about lining it up too much. These two bolts just made up with some captive nuts inside the frame. That literally could not be easier to do. So it's a really clever design. There's no funny plates or anything like that, or slots or whatever that you got to worry about. You just unbolt, bolt, and you're good to go. Right, the other cool thing that I liked about it is actually the buttocks, the back of the quad here. So they changed the standoffs a bit. The normal setup has a nicer SMA mount for your antenna, so it gives a little bit more protection to the antenna. I am running a TPU mount that slots into the little gaps that they have in these little custom standoffs here, so I don't even need any screws to mount my VTX anymore, which is really cool. And yeah, it's just super, just that much more elegant. I think the chameleon tie and the chameleon and the rooster and all that always kind of had a cool setup back here, but they've just gone a step further, and it's just a nice touch. What else? So there's tons of room inside, because since the arms are mounted on the bottom, although you can mount them inside, but you've got a ton of room to build stuff. So this ugly stack in here, there's plenty of room for it. Nothing is interfering with the top plate, so that's all cool. And yeah, let's not comment on my build. All I can say is that it works. And much like the rooster, the one thing I really like about the Armattan frames in general is the fact that you've got, okay, so you can get this plate off with 4 bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4, pop, the plate here just pops off. 4 bolts, and then you can get in, you can clean it up, you can maintain it, you can unplug your VTX or do little whatever you got to do inside, and then you can ram the plate back on. It is super easy to do, and that's something I loved about the Rooster, because, you know, stuff happens to your quads and sometimes you do got to get in there. And a lot of the other frames I've had, you have to undo like 8 bolts, and sometimes you've got stuff zip tied to your top plate and it just becomes a giant mess. Like your camera assembly will fall out, and not with this thing. You pop off the plate and the whole quad is just there, solid as a rock. Do what you need to do, pop the plate on, you're good to go in just minutes. If you do need to get into the camera area, you can get this guy off with 4 bolts really easy, or you can just unscrew the camera and it'll drop right out the bottom. So you've got plenty of options. It makes this thing really easy to live with and maintain, the least hassles possible. Get a quad that's easy to work on, easy to maintain, easy to fix, or whatever. That's another good thing about this thing, is the spare parts are all available. So if I do break anything, easy to get replacements. And that's not just because I'm sponsored. You go on the website, these arms are like probably, I'm guessing like $6 or something. They're definitely not a break in the bank option. It builds beautifully, it feels premium, it is solid as hell and ready to crash. What I have done, as usual, is I've added the little pads down here, which I think are actually really important, because you tend to come down hard sometimes. Sometimes you disarm from like a meter up in the air or something, and I don't like stuff clattering on the ground, so I want big old pads on my quads. So I stick on the big old pads. The regular pads that come with it are basically not up to the job, in my opinion. Another thing I tend to do, which I did with this guy as well, is I added a little cushioning in here. So I have an extra silicone grommet underneath the foreign one, so that just raises it up a bit, gives a little bit of cushion. Sorry for dropping it. I have the flight controller mounted on rubber standoffs as always, so again, that just reduces shock. So if I come down hard, there's all this cushy stuff that is like taking some stress off my components and my solder joints and wiring and all that stuff. Every little bit helps when you're crashing. The XT60 is mounted through the top. I always recommend doing it this way. I don't know why guys do it out the side. It's kind of doesn't make sense. I've seen guys that have it out the side just ripping them off and having all sorts of problems. I won't name names. The best way I've ever seen to mount a friggin' XT60, because it's partially protected by your GoPro up here, partially protected by the battery itself in the back, and then you can strap it as much as you want and it's not going anywhere, and you don't need to add zip ties and all that kind of stuff. That's just a band-aid solution for a bad design, in my opinion. This thing, really great setup. So yeah, I am looking forward to it. I'm liking it. I wasn't too happy about having to go to a mini cam, because that meant I had to buy new cameras, and I'm a cheapskate. And also you can't really find CCD mini cams that easily anymore. I think it's only the Runcam Swift Mini now. I hate micro cams because I think the friggin' lenses are atrocious on them, and I don't like CMOS cams. But anyhow, what I do like about this is that since they have shrunk this distance in the front here, that means that you can get your Allen key, or whatever you want to call this tool, right in there to loosen and unloosen these bolts really easily, so you can change your tilt just that much simpler without stripping things or having any other hassles. That's my build. It's good to go. I'm still getting used to them, but they fly pretty good and I'm happy with them. And that's about it. It's a slick little frame, it's fun, it's good, it's adjustable, and yeah, I like it. So I think I've rattled on enough about frames. It's probably time to fly now. So I'm gonna fly this spot now. Less than an hour to fly though, that sucks. All right, enough screwing around. It's time to prep the quads, get in the air. So this spot is potentially very, 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 very sketchy. It's got all the stuff you really don't want in a Bando. If I rotate this camera, I have scraggle, I have iron bars, I have water, Underneath that water is some kind of mud that is like caking my shoes and sticking to me. It's got just tons of stuff everywhere down here. But oh yeah, and it has sand, of course, as well. And then even worse than sand, it's kind of the moon dust sand that you get near construction sites, which is like super fine. It can be a super sketchy place to fly, so apologize in advance if the video is terrible. The way to go about flying spots like this, though, it's just method.
Welcome to Open TX.
It's all about like taking it easy. So if you look at this spot one way, it looks like a friggin' death trap, basically, and it kind of is. But you know what? If you look up a little bit above, there's a big open space here, so you don't actually have to go down into this crazy stuff if you don't want to. You can just fly around in here, ride the buildings, no problem. So you have the choice, right, of what you want to do and how crazy you want to get and all that kind of stuff. So there's a bit of that. So the trick with flying this spot is to kind of use that to your advantage and basically start off by flying the comfortable areas and get comfy with your quad and all that kind of stuff, and then venture into the sketchier nooks and crannies of the spot. That's how I do it. And you know, sometimes it works better than other times. Some days I have better days than other days, and so on and so forth. There's like never any guarantees, you know, just because you might have done the best pack of your life yesterday. Every day is a new day, and that's kind of the mentality that I adopt. You know, I'm pretty confident in my basic flying skills, but if you're trying to like sort of throw it around, push your luck, and do crazy cool things, you know, this spot will bite you. Pretty much any spot will bite you, but this spot in particular will bite you. Like, my nightmare is kind of crashing it in the middle of that thing, but not the end of the world, because I guess I could get the quad back, because that water's not terribly deep, I think. I don't think it will swallow me up. Is it quicksand? I don't know. I don't think it is. I think it would be probably okay. It would be really funny getting rescued, though. Help me! I'm sinking! My girlfriend or whatever would be like, what? Actually, I don't even know if I could call her, because I don't think she can lift me up. So anyhow, trick here is just, you know, start off easy and go crazier. I would really like to see what someone like Cricket, or like, I did this on purpose. I'd really like to see what somebody like Cricket or Mr. Steele could do in these spots that I've got. Because, like, I know, you know, I have no problems with the way I fly. I'm happy doing what I do and all that. But I know I'm not, like, creme de la creme or anything like that. So I'm just curious, like, what would happen if some really good pilots showed up at these same bandos? Because I can see stuff that could be done that maybe I'm too chicken to do or whatever. And it'd just be really interesting to see what these other dudes could do and how hard these bandos could actually be ripped. But until that happens, it's all up to me, I guess. Yep. Alright. Ready to ride this spot now. Forgot to mention, the reason I'm flying all my old spots again on purpose is because since I've got a new cam tilt, everything's a little bit different. So, like, basically, you know, I could come here with my rooster and I would know my way around it pretty well, right? But when you change the cam tilt on your quad and your flying style has changed a little bit, you want to reevaluate the spot. I just kind of want to see how this quad performs in this area and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's not a big deal, but it's a source of curiosity for me. I like these things, and the only way you can find out is by doing it. So, like, if I want to find out how does having less than 20 degrees tilt on your FPV cam affect your diving, well, you know, I've got to find a building to dive. So So I'm really here for science, actually, believe it or not.
Well, I found it, obviously, since you're watching this. Sure had my doubts though, because the lipo unplugged. So what happened is it just did a hard hit on this motor here, and that motor is now a little wobbly, so like changing props is pretty pointless. That guy just needs a new bell, then he's good to go though. So now it's decision time. It's like, do I want to fly more and go to the backup quad, or do I want to just cut my losses? Because I got one quad down with a very probably simple fix, just a new bell, and I have spare bells. Or do I want to fly the quad number 2? And I do kind of still want to fly, but my spider sense is telling me that I should pack up and go though. I don't know why. It's just telling me that. I think I need to practice some dives somewhere easier before I start diving the little gaps in the building. Actually, I've never even really dove the gaps in that building much before, or at all. Anyways, so there's that. But like, yeah, these quads really want to dive, and I'm not really ready for that yet, because that's pretty hardcore. I mean, I got one wrong. That wasn't even a big dive. I went up maybe 3 stories, 2 stories, 3 stories, and you know, hit something wrong. I actually had a pretty good line on that, I thought, but I guess not. Duck, 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 and it spat the quad out in a bad way. Just not worth it today. The other factor is that no one's with me, right? So I'm alone, and the light is kind of going to crap as well. So like, if I screw something up and totally lose a quad, which could happen, so suppose I'm diving up here, and suppose I'm trying to dive these, okay, there's little square gaps up this building, right? So suppose I want to dive that whole chute, and suppose it's totally clean and there's no hanging things, which there are hanging things, by the way. But suppose I'm diving that. Now, if I get it wrong, chances are the quad will probably bounce out of the building. But there's no guarantee on that. It could bounce into the building. And if it does that, then I have to go into the building and like go up the stairs, find the right floor, find the quad, and then come down. And these buildings are abandoned, so there's no like lights in them. And that's why I'm gonna cut it short for today, I think. Need more practice. I gotta find a place that's like I can get my dive on, but maybe with a little bit of a bigger hole. Those gaps were not so bad. Gotta figure that out, man. Actually, diving gaps though is different than diving the building. I didn't really have problems diving down the side of the building. That's fine. Going up and the quad was just lining. Okay, I don't know. I can't blame the quad because they don't fly themselves, obviously. But like, I was going up and I was looking down, just hoping to dive the surface, and I'm finding every time that, whoa, I'm actually lined up for this friggin' gap down the side of the building, and no. It's an interesting one. I haven't had this conundrum much before. Generally, I don't fly terribly sketchy spots like this. I don't know. My way of doing it will be to find somewhere like easier where I can practice it a bit and work my way up or something. And hey, even though I'm sponsored by Armattan for frames, I'm not sponsored for anything else, so any motors and electronics and lipos and cameras I break, that's on me. So ain't no free rides, and crashes are still very expensive. So there's that. Look, I would really like it if someone like next time Mr. Steele or Johnny or someone's in town, I don't know, reach out, man, hit me up, fly it. Teach me, take me to school in my own spots. I want to see what you guys can do and how you guys approach this kind of stuff. I'd be interested. I know that like Steele and Trappy have been in town a
couple years ago to like do some shoots for these dune buggy things, and Johnny's hopped in. Everyone in this area loves Johnny actually for commercial FPV, by the way. So he's around, but they, you know, they're working, right? So they're not gonna waste their time with lowlifes like myself. Although they did pop by one time, and that was really cool, by the way. And that's probably why I'm flying half the stuff I'm flying, because friggin' Steele knows his shit. But yeah, man, I've reached the edge of my skill.